Hello, hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Garrett Bake, your brother in arms, and welcome to another episode. I can't even talk today. Woo! Another episode of Awaken the Guardian. Today's topic: everyday heroes. I'm here with Sean Ravey, who works for the Phoenix Police Department, and I kind of want to tell you a story. You guys have heard my story over and over and over again, but it's time to start telling other stories. And Sean, although he is not guest number one, he is police officer guest number one.
Outstanding. So thank you.
Congratulations. So, Sean, I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory on Sean Ravey. He is a two-time State of Arizona Police Officer of the Year. That's for the entire state, 2010 and 2017. Two-time Phoenix Police Department Distinguished Service Award winner in 2015 and 2017. And the City of Phoenix Employee Excellence Award winner for 2016. i.e., he's done some pretty cool stuff. But 12 years ago, Sean was living out of his Jeep, 2,200 miles from his home. So let's go back a little ways, Sean. Tell me about this. So 12 years ago, you were not in police work, correct?
I was not in police work, no.
What were you doing at the time?
I was manager of a mortgage company back in 04, 5, and 6.
So the heyday.
The heyday until the heyday ended.
Right.
And it ended pretty harshly.
And so the bottom came out of the mortgage industry, and most of us are aware of that. So what happened to you, though?
Well, we tried to hold on, but the end came very quickly. And the mortgages defaulted. People left their homes. They just simply walked away from them, which defaulted on our money.
Right.
And we quickly lost our business. I lost my savings, my home, my cars were repossessed. I ended up living back with my father in the same room I grew up in at 39 years old.
So you're 39 years old, you've lost everything, including your cars and your house, and you find yourself living back in the same bedroom that you grew up in. Like, what was that like?
Horrifying. You just wake up and everyone has dreams and goals and aspirations in life. And hopefully by the time you're middle age, that you've got a lot of that work out of the way. You've built the foundation of a life. And I'd wake up every morning and realize everything I've worked for is gone. And not only was it gone, I was $500,000 in debt.
Wow.
And really no prospects because the economy went completely upside down. The automotive industry was headquartered in Michigan. And a lot of businesses relied on the automotive industry for survival, and those businesses went away too. Unemployment was an all-time high. You'd have people at executive vice president positions putting in for managerial positions. Wow. And managers putting in for entry-level positions, and the market was gone. And I was 39 years old, and I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Michigan's two peninsulas. Upper Peninsula is very remote. And I had nowhere else to go but back home. And my father gave me a lifeboat. But the question is, what next?
Right. So you find yourself riding this high of working in mortgages and banking, and all of a sudden just crashing and burning all the way down. And you basically have to hang your head down, and you're forced to be humble. And so now you're living in the same bedroom that you grew up in with your father. And what did that do to your ego? What did that do to how you felt about yourself?
It destroyed it. It completely undid whatever I had built up for myself. I was in pretty good shape. I did a lot of events. I worked out a lot, martial arts, and I was so stressed out. I lost 25 pounds, broke out in shingles. I wouldn't even go out in public because inevitably I'd see someone from my past. Hey, how's it going? And I'd put a hoodie on and a baseball hat and just walk around in shame. And I didn't even want to look at myself in the mirror because I had nothing.
So here you find yourself at the bottom of this pit, unwilling to even confront the truth of where it was you were at because it was so painful. So this is interesting. This is the first time I've heard it. Because of the situation you were in, there were physical manifestations of why, or I should say of how your life wasn't working. So you lost 25 pounds, so you quit going to the gym. I'm guessing you quit eating good.
Stopped eating, stopped sleeping.
Stopped sleeping.
Couldn't sleep.
And then you got shingles.
I did.
So here you are, a 39-year-old man who was at the top and now is completely at the bottom. And so how long did this experience last for you?
That was in September of '06, Labor Day weekend. Everything fell apart. The next couple of days, I moved back in with Dad and just marinated in my own depression and anxiety and fear. And there's a difference between terror and fear.
Right.
Terror freezes you. And I was terrified because I didn't know what to do. And my dad came out in the garage one day, and I was literally sitting on the steps in the garage crying because I had no concept of what I was going to do with my life. And he said, all right, I'm giving you 15 minutes. Puke, cry, scream, whatever you need to do to get this out, get it out. I'll be at the table waiting for you when you're done. So I got it out, had my little pity party, went inside, and he said, what are our options here?
So dad is dragging you back to reality.
He did, and my dad's been my compass my entire life. He's a self-made man and one of the leaders of his industry. And all I could think of, my dad's always showed me pros and cons. Pro, con, line. Fill them up. You know, and living in my bedroom in my dad's house was not something that was sustainable.
Yeah.
So he said, go to the library, sit down on a computer, job sites, whatever you need to do, I'll support you as long as I can to help. And he did. I had no money. I had nothing. I had a Jeep. That was it. That's all I was able to hold on to was a Jeep. Jeep Liberty. It was a nice 206 Jeep Liberty. I loved it. So I went to the library again with my hoodie on because it's a small town. There was only 2,000 people in my town. And
so you're starting to do something about your life, but you're still trying to kind of protect.
Right.
Like
big time protect. Big time protect. But I knew I had to do something.
Right. And
one thing my dad said, he said, look, you're 6'2". If you fall flat on your face, you're 6 feet more forward than you were when you started. So, hey, good way of looking at life. So
all right.
Even a little more backstory. Back in 2001, I dated a girl named Jennifer from Michigan. We were too good of friends to date. Once we really hit it off, so we didn't want to screw it up with the relationship. She started dating another guy that I remember when she met him, hey, what do you think of this guy? He's this, he's that, great guy. He was a builder. He lost his building company about the same time I lost my mortgage company, a couple months prior. So he moved to Arizona to live with his uncle, who was a contractor. Anyone who knew me knew I always wanted to be a police officer.
So let me pause real quick, because we're talking a lot about your backstory. And I know for you guys in the audience, good luck keeping track, but too bad, so sad. This is my show. We're going to run it the way I want to. Where did this desire to become a police officer come from?
My dad's best friend was a Michigan State Trooper. His name was Paul Sved. And he one day brought my dad home in the patrol car. Yeah. It just blew my mind. I was like, wow, look at the uniform, the badge, and he was about 6'3", 210, just a big man. And I said, I want to be you. I want to be you. And that was when I was 4 or 5 years old. And so I always had that desire to become a police officer, but as life went on, I was either talked out of it by well-meaning people,
right,
who always think that they know more about what you want than you do.
Right.
And I listened and went to college, got a degree in journalism, became a professional writer for years, got married, decided I wanted to be a cop still. And my wife said, too dangerous, not going to do it. So marriage didn't last. I was never fulfilled or happy. She's doing great now, by the way, got remarried, has a couple kids. Good for her. But I was single, and I'm like, I'm doing it. 33, tested for Michigan State Police, passed. Ready to get my academy date, hiring freeze. That lasted until I was past the allowable age of 35.
Wow.
So it just never worked out.
Since you were a child, you've wanted, and then you kept getting shut down. So at this point, you're walking to the library. Is there any thought in your head like, I still want to be a police officer?
I was just trying to survive at that point. My dreams and aspirations were dead.
Right.
They were dead.
So the only thing that you were thinking about was, I need to make something work.
Right.
So go back to where you're at.
So back to Bart, my friend Bart. He was out in Arizona. And as soon as I log in, of course, we always check our emails.
Right.
I check my email, and I have an email from Bart with the line was, do you still want to be a police officer? I was like, how random is that? And he said, Sean, I don't know if you still aspire to this dream, but Phoenix Police is hiring They need 1,000 police officers, and there's no age limit. I didn't even go to monster.com or whatever the page was at the time. I went to United Airlines and I booked the flight.
Wow.
To come
you
to
were
Phoenix.
Like, I'm all in.
Yeah. I went to the Phoenix website and saw September 29th. September 30th was the test date down at the academy. And they were doing the written and the physical on the same day. This was the second week of September. So I had 2 weeks.
2 weeks to get out and 2 weeks to get ready.
Right. And keep in mind, I'd already dumped 25 pounds, already marinating in self-pity, no motivation. But suddenly I felt reborn. It's like, I can do this.
So the simple, what I want you guys to hear is this happens to us a lot in life. Like, we have this purpose burning inside of us, and people start to just piss on it or
They
dump
do.
water, whatever you want to call it, and they just try and put that fire out, and they put that fire out, and they put that fire out, and eventually you give up. And so Sean basically gave up, not because he didn't want to, but because people put his fire out. And then all of a sudden there was someone who was willing to light his fire again. And as soon as they lit your fire, I mean, literally, you didn't even go to like search anything about the job. You booked the plane ticket first.
No plan B.
This was
I
it.
had no plan B.
Because you knew this was your purpose in your heart.
Absolutely. And Arizona was thriving at that point, and there was no snow and ice. And so I got the test date. I went to the site, found out what I needed to do to pass the test with the 1.5 mile run, the times, the push-ups, the sit-ups. Great. Kind of in shape. Let's go for that 1.5 mile run and time myself. First day, I cramped up after a half mile and threw up.
All right. So,
It's like, great. I
got a
can't
good
even
starting
run.
point.
Good starting point. But, Dad, every day was, how'd you do? Can we beat this number? Let me hold your feet for your sit-ups. Let's time it, and let's do them all three at the same time, because you're going to do all three. And after 2 weeks, I flew out here. And for some reason, I booked a hotel at the I-17 in Union Hills. And you know where the academy
That's
is from
not
there.
really close.
It's not close at all.
So we're talking at least, 20 miles?
At least 20 miles. And I had to find Phoenix on a map.
Oh, yeah.
Keep in mind, I live in Michigan. That's 2,200 miles away where I grew up. And I kept doing this on the map. It's like, wow, this is really far away. And so I drove down to the academy on a Friday just to make sure I knew where it was.
Right.
And I'm walking through that area, and I was like, wow, because the recruits were out. They were, marching. And I'm like, this is where I need to be. This is incredible. But I also forgot to reset my watch for the time change.
Ooh,
So I
what
showed
was the time difference at that time?
3 hours.
3 hours.
So I showed up at 10 for, I thought it was 2, but it was 10. It was ridiculous time. So I was 3 hours early for the exam.
That beats 3 hours late.
Yeah, it did. And I remember I met the PIO, and he said, man, gun-ho, I like that. So I just wandered around the academy and just said, man, this is amazing. And there was probably 200 plus people there. And I was looking over all their heads. A lot of them were a lot younger.
Yeah.
And
So how old were you at this time again?
39.
39 years old, saying, this has been my dream since I was a little kid, and screw everyone else, I'm going to go after this.
I'm going to go after it. Passed all the tests, obviously, first time. And as soon as I crossed the finish line, because the 1.5 mile was the last event, everything was washed away.
Okay, do you remember what the qualifying time was?
I think it was under 11 minutes and 35 seconds
And how
for
did
my
you do?
age group. I did 10:40, 10:45.
So,
And when you-
I want you guys to hear this. Like, a man who had basically quit working out, had lost 25 pounds, had physically and mentally given up on himself within a period of 2 weeks?
Oh,
3
yeah.
weeks max?
Crushing.
Said, this has been my lifelong dream, and I'm going to go after it. And so literally just goes out and crushes the test. First shot, right?
First shot.
So you didn't even have to retest. First shot. So you passed the physical, and then next was the written.
The written was first. You had to pass the written to do the physical.
All right. So you passed those, and now you're like feeling like you're on cloud nine.
Yeah, because there was only 35 people left at the end of the day.
So over 235 people. So you're looking less than 15% pass-through rate.
Yeah, and so I went back home to Michigan, and of course, you gather everything up, send it in. We'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. Well, I didn't hear back. So now we're toward the end of October.
Still living in...
Still living in my dad's bedroom. But the great thing is Dad and I got close because he was so busy. I had my life. It was like a cats in the cradle thing. But we got really close during that time. And finally, the decision was made, well, if they're not calling me, I'm going anyway. Because what did I have to lose?
Exactly.
Absolutely nothing. I didn't have suitcases. I got garbage bags, put my clothes in it. My dad gave me an old TV and secondhand pots and pans and plates and silverware. And I remember I left on Halloween weekend. It was Game 6 of the World Series. Tigers against St. Louis. I remember that very well.
All right.
Sleet and rain and hail. And I set out in my Jeep to Arizona.
So, what I'm curious, this is a complete side note. It has nothing to do with anything. What kind of TV was it? Was it like the old tube TVs?
It was the big back, and the mistake was it didn't have the auxiliary cable places, so I had no place to plug my PlayStation into.
So you had a PlayStation and a TV, and you couldn't do both.
I couldn't do both at the same time. So I drove out here in 3 days, and again, I didn't have a job, I didn't have a place to live, and I knew one person. But that person knew a person who knew Jennifer back in the early 2000s, who is the girl that, in fact, I just saw her Sunday, who basically forced me to get out of the little 500 square foot apartment I moved into after 3 weeks and start being social. Because I didn't get hired until May.
Oh, wow.
I came out here November 1st, I landed in my Jeep coming down the 17. And so there was a lot of time filling that had to be done yet.
So, like, I want to pause you real quick. Guys, what I want you to hear again is this process. Like, everybody thinks that, oh, I've got a dream and yay, it's going to be so easy. And as soon as I take that first step, like, everything's just going to fall into place. Literally, this was a dream that had been pissed on for Sean since he was a kid. It finally reappears. He jumps, takes that opportunity, and then he gets told the old hurry up and wait. So from September when he tested, he moved out here in November with no job, mind you, all the way until May until he finally gets hired. I want you guys to see this. Like, this is not unique to Sean. This is not unique to me, and this is not unique to you. But what I want you to hear is the process that he went through, not just in this instance, but in his entire life. See, most of us have hopes and dreams when we're young, or when we first get married, or when we first start a career. But then when life gets hard, we give up. We quit trying. People start pissing on us, things like that. I'm here to tell you the only way you're going to get what you want out of life is to just keep moving forward. So how do we do that? Well, you're going to hear specifics about Sean, right? But what I created for you guys is this tactical guide to becoming elite, right? Which helps you get clear about where it is that you are, what it is that you want, and then exactly what you need to do to get there. So as you're thinking about that, I want you to listen to Sean as he's going through his story of how he became a police officer. So May comes around. You get a phone call.
I got a phone call.
What did they say?
Said, one step remains, drop a UA.
Oh.
The night before, I just had poppy seed chicken.
Oh.
So that was fun. Dropped the UA. They said, congratulations. May 21st, show up at 620 West Washington. Let's light this candle. And first person I went to was Andrea, the girl that, in fact, she's from Michigan. She flew to Detroit. I picked her up at her sister's house, and she drove out here with me.
Wow.
Because the state of mind I was in was frightening.
Yeah.
And she didn't think it was safe for me to drive 3 days by myself. So she came with me. And she's, everything, life is doorways and windows. If they're open, walk through them. If they're ajar, kick them open. Some of them close, some of them lead to different things. But one thing I learned through this, and again, as you said, it's not exclusive. Everyone has terrible things happen to them.
Right.
But the instant I stopped dwelling on me and started looking at the people who were in front of me that said, how can I help you, is when my life started changing. Because if you can't get past yourself, you're never going to find that leverage to get ahead. And people are going to help you. And they might be in your life for a minute, or like Andrea for the last 12 years in my life. Right. And so she's the first person I went to and found and hugged, and I cried. It was just the greatest feeling of my entire life. I mean, I felt like I was a kid again. Of course, I was 40 now. And
a 40-year-old kid.
40-year-old kid.
It doesn't matter because you're like every police officer that's ever gotten the call or the letter or whatever.
I was giddy.
Like a little kid. Exactly.
I was
giddy like a little kid.
But the funny thing was that in employment services, I was sitting there with the other hires, and this one kid kept staring at me. You know, when you can look at people, you know they're young.
Yeah.
And finally I looked at him and I'm like, what? He's like, dude, how old are you? Like, I'm 40. Why? He goes, dude, you're 3 years younger than my dad.
Oh my God.
And so I found out he was in my academy class. And whenever we did physical testing, I made sure he was my partner.
Oh, good.
And at the end of the academy, he's like, dude, I misjudged you. I'm sorry about that.
A little extra motivation.
Yeah, because my goal was obviously I'm not going to out sprint 21-year-old kids, but I could do more push-ups than them. And my goal was to be the class push-up champion, which I did. Good. I did 120 push-ups during the POPAT. And that was a cool feeling. That was a cool feeling. Well, that's all I had. I had nothing but time before. It's all I did was train. Because one moment, you get one shot. I got my shot, and I wasn't going to be that guy who said, okay, now someone's going to take care of this for me. No, I needed to take care of this for me.
I love that. And it's so true. Like, we want our lives to get better, but we're always waiting for someone else to do it for us. And the truth is exactly what you just said, is like, you have to take responsibility for your life. Okay, how do you want it to look? Then go and create it. Like, and this is what you did. You said, okay, somebody open up this door, even a little bit for police officer. I'm kicking it in and I'm taking it. And I love the fact that, you know, November to May, which was probably a very difficult time for you. You know, you started living in your Jeep, then you moved up to a 500 square foot apartment, which is huge. Let's be honest. Not really. In fact, it's about, smaller than the studio, isn't it?
I got my furniture from a charity, a Catholic Charities place. Yeah. I had to cover it in towels because it was so worn out.
Towels and Lysol and whatever else you get. But the fact is, I want you guys to hear this. The fact is that he had been given the opportunity, but it was up to him what he was going to do with it. And so instead of sitting around or on his knees and praying for another opportunity or praying to get hired, he prepared. He spent the entire time preparing. And so instead of just being another recruit in the academy, or there's that old guy, like, they respected you because why?
Because they saw I didn't quit, and that I backed up my motivation. Like, I'm not just here. And when I went down that first day before the test and I saw the recruits on the parade deck in formation, I had that image in my head the entire time. When I was running, when I was doing push-ups, when I still wasn't getting called back, that's all I drove toward, was that image of me standing on that parade deck in uniform, listening to the flag go up. And that's what kept me going. Self-talk is huge too. If you don't talk to yourself, sometimes it's the only intelligent conversation you're going to have in a day. Talk to yourself. It may sound corny and simplistic, but it works. If you can't have other people motivate you.
You're right.
You have to look in the mirror and say, man, you got this. You can do this. So what? You're 40 years old. Look at you. I mean, you're fantastic. You know, whatever you need to say. If you believe it, other people are going to believe it too. And they see it off of you. You don't even, they have to ask you. They know. In fact, I got in trouble in the academy for smiling so much. I had to do push-ups because I wouldn't stop smiling. That's how happy I was just to be there and to have the opportunity I've waited for my entire life. And it meant a lot to me. Yeah. And especially going up against these guys from military guys. Fantastic 23, 24-year-old guys that are just, man alive. I just feel honored to be around them. And we had, the class elected me to give the speech in our graduation, and I still see, you see him around. And it's the best moment of my life as an officer, was going through that process, because it validated everything that I worked for.
Right. That's beautiful. So tell me, you get hired, you start working, what areas, well, I guess it really doesn't matter, but let's, like, general the areas, were they the good parts of town or the not so good parts?
South Central Phoenix.
South Central Phoenix. For those of you who are not familiar with South Central Phoenix, it would be what we would call the hood.
I learned how to be a cop down there. It was very busy, and I look back at my career, 12 years. Every supervisor I've had has been phenomenal. A mentor. My FTO is now a lieutenant. Just incredible people that were put with me, that took me through this process. The squad I got put on was the most senior in the department. Wow. Right off of OIT. The Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, working weekends. And they just mentored me. They didn't put me down. They'd meet with me after critical calls, and we debrief. This is what you did right. This is what you need to improve. So I've had fantastic people surround me, and it's just been amazing. So I did patrol for 6 years, learned a lot, very busy area. And I had a template in my mind, because I was older, 5 years in patrol, 5 years as a detective, 5 years as supervisor, etc. Well, I did 6 in patrol, and then I tested for the Crimes Against Children unit in December of 2012.
So you are still currently there, correct?
Yes, I've been there for 5 years.
So what kind of crimes do you investigate?
We have 42 detectives in my unit, which is a lot, because we receive about 700 cases a month of physical abuse, sexual abuse, and neglect of minors.
Wow.
And
700 cases a month.
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. It's pretty gruesome. And there's a lot of darkness there. And one of my mentors, when he found out I was going there, he said, just don't let the sadness overwhelm you. Because what is sadder than a sad child?
Yeah, there's not much of anything.
They don't know what's going on.
So let me ask you, like, when you first went there and you started experiencing these cases, did you feel yourself start to, like, change?
I have. I have changed. I've gotten darker, but I've also gotten more resolute. I've been there for 5 years, and there's a certain process that these are things you don't talk about with people, because even cops don't want to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
They don't. My wife's a nurse, and even she doesn't want to hear it. So you have to have a process, and the victory comes when you're sitting across from that perpetrator and you're interrogating them, and you can just pinpoint the moment their soul breaks, and you got them. And they confess, and they go away. And that's great closure for the family. And I know we're going to get into what I'm doing now, but that's when I started realizing after a couple of years, great closure for me, for the family, but the 6-year-old is still hurting.
Still hurting. So I want you guys to see this. Like, and police officers, you're lying to yourself if you say that the job does not affect you. You're lying. Like, it doesn't matter if you're just working patrol or if you're working the Center Against Family Violence or if you're working homicide. It doesn't matter. The job affects you. And whether you realize it or not, you take that home. And so you heard Sean explain to it, like, it's difficult for him to recount these experiences to his wife. And it took me back to when I was working, when I was working narcotics and undercover and all these other things, some of the things that I would see. And finally it got to the point where my wife told me, like, I don't want to hear it. And it's difficult because who do cops turn to? How do they get the darkness out from inside of them? And it's a real difficult thing to do. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of cops that haven't been able to deal with the darkness.
Yeah, and nor do they want to talk about it.
Exactly.
Because there's a stigma
that
goes along with it. And again, in 5 years, I've investigated over 1,000 cases. I've had 3 that have stuck with me. 2 of them happened this year. It's been a very difficult year, but again, I'm surrounded by fantastic chain of command who actually, because my personality changed this year. I mean, I was doing things out of character, out of norm.
How many years do you have on?
12.
12. So listen to this. He didn't change when he had 2 years on or when he had 4 years on. He changed when he had 12 years on. Like, the job is going to affect you at different points. And for Sean, it happened to be 12. For me, it was about 8. It doesn't matter, though, when it affects you. What matters is, are you able to recognize it, or do you have people around you that are able to recognize it and then help you deal with it? And so in your case, what happened?
My sergeant sat me down and said, this is out of character. I've known you for years. This is not you. And he knew, I can't talk about the case, obviously, but it was the worst case I've ever seen, ever. And most people I've ever seen. It was terrible. And I wasn't getting the results I wanted from the suspect and whom I thought did this. And so I became very angry. And I started lashing out when normally I'm very gregarious and resonant with people. I was just a dick. I really was. Yeah. And he sat me down and said, you need to go into timeout. I was posting things on social media I shouldn't have, being really sarcastic and biting on community pages. And he said, timeout on everything. You need to step back.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how many police officers, when things aren't going right, choose to lash out on social media?
Bad decision.
You heard Sean say it. Bad
decision.
And you guys have seen it. Like, police officers will post pictures that they shouldn't, or they'll make comments that they shouldn't, or they'll say things like videos that they like, all kinds of stuff that they shouldn't. But listen, like, we're not the what's the right word? We're not the police, right? And as far as like telling you what you should and shouldn't do in life. But what we are trying to tell you is there's a reason behind it. And so you need to take a second and take a breath and look at the reason behind it. Like, why are you lashing out at your wife? Why are you lashing out at your kids? Why are you lashing out at social media? Or in your case, why did you start lashing out at the suspect? And for those of you who think that you've never done it, you're lying. I've done it. I've said things and done things that I shouldn't have.
It's hard not to. We're human and with emotion.
Exactly.
And we're better at controlling that than most based upon the job we do. However, there's a breaking point in all of us.
You are 100% right. And so I go back to this, like, what do you have set up in place that will help you prepare for when this time comes? Because if it hasn't already, it will. So what do you have in place? And I'm asking you, the audience, to prepare for when this time comes. Like, listen, this is why my life went down the toilet. This is why I almost got divorced. This is why I started drinking. This is why I was abusing prescription drugs. Like, on and on and on and on. Why? Because I didn't have something in place. And so when the darkness came, I didn't know what to do with it. So I'm imploring you, I'm pleading with you. If you see yourself going down this path, reach out. And I'm not telling you have to reach out to me, but reach out to somebody you trust. Reach out to somebody you know. Somebody that can help support you through the hard times. Because if you don't, the chance of you going over the edge is extremely high.
Yeah, and back in 2015, to segue into what I do to help, not only me, but because I said I got closure for families. I got closure for me, the department, the case, charging, booking, but I still had a sad and terrified little kid.
Right.
That came and told their story, and that's a hard thing for them to do anyway, is just tell what happened to them, because they really don't know, and it's difficult to get that. But in 2015, I had that epiphany. It's like, what am I doing for this little guy or girl that are here with me? And I grew up a nerd. I still am. I escaped into comic books as a kid. Spider-Man was my favorite because he was a little nerdy kid who got bullied and picked on, saw his family get killed, his uncle, his mom and dad. He was orphaned. But he didn't let that stop him from becoming a hero. Batman became a hero after seeing his parents murdered. Superheroes, and what I did, you don't want to talk about child abuse. Who does? Very difficult topic.
Very difficult.
I mean, then you talk about sexual abuse on top of that, it closes the door. So two things. One, I wanted education and enlightenment and empowerment. So I thought I'd take the mythology of superheroes and place it together with the work I do and the people and the work we do in the Child Help Center. I figured to myself, well, if I like superheroes and they made me feel good as a kid, I don't think that's changed.
No.
So I said, wow, wonder if we should get posters and comic books for the lobby. Mm-hmm. So when the little kid comes in scared and he sees a Spider-Man poster, that might change his way he sees himself.
Right.
And so that's how this thing got started in 2015, and it's turned into something much, much bigger than that now.
So before he's going to explain more about what he does now, and mind you, he does this on the side, right? He still works full time as a police officer. But what I want you to see is he was able to take this darkness, right? This bad space and bad energy that he was surrounded by, and was able to create something light. He was able to create something love. He was able to create something so that these kids could have hope. Because the fact that the kids didn't have hope is what dragged him down. And it's what drags all of us as police officers down. We start to lose hope. And so he had a choice. He could continue to drift and become like every other police officer, or he could choose to create something that changed that. And so you did. So you started with incorporating this comic book world into the center.
I did.
Where did it go from there?
Well, one thing you have to realize, that hope is stronger than fear.
Say that again. I like that.
Hope is stronger than fear. Somebody took their right to be a little kid away from them. I had him for such a short time. In fact, one of the detectives on my squad this morning asked me, why do you do this? Why do you do this Superhero September promotion? And I said, because we have these kids for 30 minutes. And it's much like the story of the big storm, million starfish on the beach, and a little kid out there chucking starfish in. If you've heard this story,
I have, but go ahead and explain it.
someone
again.
comes up and says, "What are you doing?" Says, "Well, I'm giving these starfish hope." And he goes, "Well, how can you possibly make a difference? There's a million here." And he picked one up and threw it in. He said, "I made a difference for that one."
Exactly.
So we have these kids. They're there for medical exams. They're there for psychiatric help. They're there to be interviewed about the crime that happened to them. That's a long day.
Very long.
I have them as an interviewer and as an investigator for maybe 30 minutes. What can I do in that window to lift their spirits? Empowerment is everything with these kids. How can I change their worldview with that little bit of time I have? We as adults overcomplicate things. Way too much.
Isn't that the truth?
When simplicity sometimes is the best answer, and that's the key to investigations too, by the way. Simplicity, start there. The first time I handed an action figure to a little kid of a superhero, his favorite superhero, it's like a light came on in him. Totally changed his outlook. He went from sad and depressed to just, wow, Iron Man. And that's when I knew we had something. And now this is the fourth year of Superhero September. We've grown from raising $4,000 in 2015 and having 2 events to this year. Our goal is to hit 50,000, and we have 8 events scheduled throughout the valley. And what we do is we bring professional grade costumed actors to the Child Help Center for one big event. It's called the Super Main Event, and it's on September 8th this year. We had 40 of them last year there. We had 3,000 people come to the event. And they come as superheroes. Media covers it. What we want is for the community to rise up and put on a cape and be a hero to these little kids. How can we do that? Donate action figures. Donate superhero-themed T-shirts. School supplies. Both girls and boys, because girls and boys are both victims, and boys and girls need to know they can become heroes.
Right.
It's inside of them. So we have this big event in September.
So let's get into. I want to get into details so these guys
Sure.
know the details. So September 8th, you said?
September 8th at 2120 North Central.
2120 North Central. And what building is that?
That is the Family Advocacy Center Child Help building. And within Child Help, when people come with their victimized children, we have doctors from Phoenix Children's Hospital. We have victims advocates from Child Help that helps the family with services. We have medical health specialists, mental health specialists, and my unit is there in the Office of Child Welfare Investigations.
All of these groups are set up to help the victims, these children and their families, cope through these situations.
In one location, so they don't have to go all over the place,
Right.
which is nice. We call it the superhero team. Well, I do, and it stuck.
Yeah.
It stuck. So what we all do is September, the entire lobby is decked out and posters and action figures in the playroom and superhero cartoons and coloring books. And every child that comes in is asked, who's your favorite superhero? And what we want is the community to donate those items to fill the shelves there at Child Help. Because last year, almost 8,000 kids walked through those front doors.
Wow.
8,000.
Hold on. Guys, I want you to hear this for a minute. 8,000 kids. Now, this is not like 8,000 kids that went to a school. This is 8,000 children that were victims of some type of abuse. And each of these 8,000 children needed to be given some kind of ray of hope. So the reason that this program exists, this Superhero September, is not for any other reason other than to help these children out.
It's to help them be little kids again. Little kids could they should jump in mud puddles. They should take your cell phone and flush it down a toilet and laugh and run around with their diapers full. That's what little kids should do. They shouldn't hide in their closet when they hear the garage door go up. They shouldn't pull the covers over their head when they hear their door open. That's a reality that not a lot of people want to know about, but it's there. So, and that's not 8,000 kids repeat coming in for therapies and help. That's 8,000 kids who are listed as victims in police reports.
Wow.
And it's staggering, the amount. And so what we do, we have them for a very, very short time. And my goal in the beginning was to take care of all the needs of those kids when they came there, because it didn't make sense to me to give an action figure to a kid who hasn't eaten. And we see kids covered in lice and bed bugs wearing paper towels for diapers with no shoes who come to Child Help because that's their reality.
Yeah.
So now this event, thankfully, has grown to the point we have companies like AT&T, Mayo Clinic, General Mills, Mayo Hospitals, Paychex Corporation, who are doing donation drives. Red Robin, all the restaurants are doing donation drives. Chick-fil-A, they've seen the power of this event through the years.
So let's talk about just the random either police officer or other person who's listening to this. Like, what can they do?
They can, if one, they want to be a donor or a sponsor of one of our events, they can call the donation volunteer coordinator at Child Help. Her name is Danielle Gilmore.
Do you know her phone number?
602-271-4500.
602-271-4500.
4500. We are on Facebook, Superhero September. The Fantastic Fourth is the name of our Facebook page.
All right, that's a long one, so you guys need to write that down. Say it again.
Superhero September, The Fantastic Fourth. We have 8 events scheduled this year. We do superhero shopping sprees that are sponsored by people in the community. They give us money. We take costume superheroes, go to Target and Walmart, and we shop for these kids, with kids. And it's a spectacle to behold. It's incredible. North Phoenix on the 22nd, we're doing a superhero spectacular fashion show. We've got the North Phoenix Community Alliance sponsoring that. They're bringing in thousands of their members to engage the community. And that's the whole point. We have to engage the community to lift up these little kids. Because, and another reason why Spider-Man's my favorite, and sorry to go off here, but when he was vacillating on what to do with his great gifts of being a hero, his Uncle Ben looked at him and said, with great power comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. We have power when we wear a shield.
Yes.
My responsibility is to take care of these little kids that somebody violated their right to be a child.
Right.
And I'm just an average guy. I really am. Fortunately for me, above average people resonated with what I created, and they came to me and said, how can we help you? And that's why this event has grown to the degree that it has. And media is calling me every day. We need pictures. We need you for an interview. We want to get this message out. This isn't about me. This is about the team that we've developed with a Child Help team. Even the detectives on my unit dressed as superheroes for this event.
Yes. My
sergeant is all over the place getting donors and specialty vehicles. And Vince Lewis, our PIO, my goodness, the work. And that's the greatest thing. Because you can't do really anything in the dark to make it grow. Nothing grows in the dark but mold. So exactly. Shine a light. And even being with you today, you were shining a light on this promotion. It's not about me. It's about the work that we're able to do as a team when we're all working toward the same goal.
Right.
And that is to give a little kid a chance to be a little kid again.
And guys, what I want you to hear is and I'm actually video recording this. You guys don't know this yet, but you'll have access to this as well. But to see Sean's demeanor change from when he talked about when he first got into the center and went to a dark place to when he started talking about Superhero September, like his face lit up and he got more animated because he stopped worrying about himself so much and started worrying about someone else.
That's the key.
And unfortunately, as police officers, we get stuck in this idea that we can't make a difference and we're not going to make a change. So why do we keep trying?
Right.
But the truth is that you can make a difference. Just like that one little starfish, you can make a difference. So if you can donate. If you can come down and be a part of it, be a part of it. But if you can't, find something in your community that you can do to make a difference. And maybe just one child's life or some person's life. Because that is going to change your entire outlook on not only what you do, but why it is that you do it.
And I'm sure you know officers, as I do, who when you deal with the homeless and the mentally ill on the street, who give them water, who give them food, who are there to make sure they're safe. Mm-hmm. And that makes you feel good inside. Because, yeah, everyone wants to be in the car chase and chasing jumping walls, but that's the low percentage. The high percentage is dealing one-on-one with people. Mm-hmm. And if my whole philosophy in life is leave people better off who have encountered you.
Right.
And if we can do that, even with this event, how can I make a difference in child abuse? An $8 action figure will change the life of an abused child.
An $8 action figure.
Here's how I know that. In 2015, a 6-year-old girl came in, sexually abused, terrified, wouldn't go in the playroom, which we have a playroom. Finally was coaxed in, hid in the corner, wouldn't even engage the other kids that were there. I asked the attendant, do we have any superhero capes left? $3 silk cape. She put it on her with a little pink mask. And this girl, you think I changed when I started talking about this program? She went from nearly the fetal position to jumping in the air, arms extended, flew toward the other kids and said, I'm a superhero and I'm going to save all of you. That's the impact we have on these kids. Simplicity.
Wow.
And it gave me chills seeing it. Everyone cried, including me, because that's when I knew we were onto something here. And now it's growing exponentially, and the community is lifting it up so much. It's humbling.
That's beautiful. So listen, guys. First of all, I want to thank Sean for being on the show today. If you guys can, September 8th, again in Phoenix, it's 2120
North Central.
North Central. At what time?
It starts at 9 to noon.
9 to noon. So if you can make it down there, make it down there. If you can't, please call the number that we talked about before. Donate. And if you can't even do that, go pick up some $8 action figures at Walmart or Target, wherever it is that you live. And as you're cruising around, just find a little kid that looks like he's having a rough day and just give him a toy.
It'll change him.
It'll change their life. All right. So thank you again for tuning in. Remember, if you're struggling right now with your life and you need a superhero, that's okay. We all do at some point. But listen, you can reach out to me at any time, Garrett at warriorguardian.com. That's Gerritt, Garrett at warriorguardian.com. Reach out to me. We'll have a conversation. I'm always open. And if you go to awakentheguardian.com, I've got that free tactical guide, the tactical guide to become an elite. It's got a really cool title, but let's be honest. It's about helping you figure out what you want out of life and then how it is that you go about getting it. So until next time, stay safe and take care.